Commander Jake Martinez stretched his long blue arms and yawned. Another boring day patrolling the edge of Galactic Council space. His species, the Cathani, had been doing this job for over 50 years now. Same routine every day. Check the ships coming through. Make sure no one was smuggling illegal goods. Send away anyone who did not belong. Jake looked out the front window of his patrol ship. Stars filled the black space around them. Nothing moved out there except the usual space dust and small rocks. His crew of 12 aliens sat at their stations, half of them looking as bored as he felt. "Commander, we have something on the scanners," said Zethka, his tactical officer. The green-skinned alien pointed at his screen with one of his forearms. "Unknown ship, about 10,000 kilometers away." Jake walked over to look at the display. A small dot blinked on the screen. "What kind of ship?" "Not sure, sir. The design does not match anything in our database. Could be a smuggler trying to use a modified hull to avoid detection." This was more interesting than Jake had expected today. Smugglers usually ran when they saw a patrol ship. This one was just sitting there. "How big is it?" "About the size of a small freighter, maybe 50 meters long. It looks damaged, though. You can see scorch marks on the hull, and the power readings are very low." Jake nodded. Damaged ships were common out here. Pirates attacked anything they thought might have valuable cargo. Sometimes the victims made it this far before their engines gave out. "Any life signs?" Zethka worked at his controls for a moment. "Yes, sir. I count maybe 20 beings aboard. They appear to be alive, but the ship looks like it might lose power completely soon." "Bellinara, open a communication channel," Jake ordered. The communications officer, a tall, thin alien with purple skin, began working at her station. "Channel open, Commander?" Jake had done this hundreds of times before. Most of the time, scared traders would beg for help or try to bribe him to let them pass. Sometimes they would claim to be lost or have engine problems. Few would try to run, but his ship was much faster than anything smugglers could afford. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Jake Martinez of the Galactic Council patrol ship 792. You are in restricted space. Identify yourself and state your business here." For a moment, nothing happened. The alien ship just drifted in space, its running lights flickering weakly. Jake was about to repeat his message when the communication screen came to life. Instead of seeing the face of some frightened alien, Jake found himself looking at a clean, professional interface with strange symbols he did not recognize. The symbols looked sharp and angular, very different from the flowing script most species used. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was clear and calm, speaking in perfect galactic common. But the accent was strange, unlike anything Jake had heard before. "It's his Earth Control Defense Network, Calcine Eco 7. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The bridge went completely silent. Jake felt his blood turn cold. Every alien on the bridge stopped what they were doing and stared at the communication screen. "Earth Control." Those two words struck fear into the heart of every species in the galaxy. Even Jake, who was only 30 years old, knew the stories. His grandfather had fought in the wars against the humans 300 years ago. The same humans who had battled 7 different alien empires at the same time and nearly won. But that was impossible. Everyone knew the humans were gone. After the Great Purge, they had vanished from known space. Most people believed they were all dead or scattered to the far corners of the galaxy as refugees. Jake tried to speak, but no words came out. His mouth felt dry and his hands started to shake slightly. Around him, his crew looked just as shocked. Bellinara's purple skin had turned almost white. Zethka was gripping his control panel so hard his knuckles were changing color. The voice came through the speakers again, still calm and professional. "We are experiencing minor technical difficulties and request safe passage through this sector. Please confirm that you understand our authority in this region." Authority. The human was talking like they still had the right to give orders to alien ships, like the last 300 years had never happened. Jake forced himself to speak. "This is Commander Martinez. Who am I speaking with?" "Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, Earth Control Defense Network. I've transmitted our identification codes and diplomatic clearances. You should have received them by now." Zethka checked his screens and nodded weakly at Jake. Sir, we are receiving data from their ship. The codes they're very old, but our computer says they are real. Jake walked closer to the communication. Screened through the interface, he could see part of what looked like a ship's bridge. Everything appeared clean and well-maintained, nothing like the damaged refugee ship he had expected. Lieutenant Rodriguez, our records show that Earth Control has not been active in this sector for over 300 years. There was a pause. Then the human woman laughed. It was not a mean laugh, but it sent chills down Jake's spine anyway. Commander, I think there may be some confusion about our current operational status. Earth Control has been monitoring this region continuously. We simply chose to operate from a different base of operations after the political changes in the Galactic government. Political changes. She was talking about the war where 7 alien empires had tried to destroy humanity. The war that had killed billions of beings on both sides. She called it political changes. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. But what could he do? If this really was a human ship, if Earth Control really was back, then everything the galaxy thought it knew was wrong. Lieutenant, can you explain what you mean by a different base of operations? That information is classified, Commander. What I can tell you is that we have been observing galactic affairs and maintaining our territorial claims in the outer sectors. We are simply passing through on routine patrol. Jake almost laughed, but it would have sounded crazy. The humans were talking like they owned this part of space, like they had never left. Velinara caught Jake's attention and whispered, Sir, I am picking up more ships on long-range sensors. They are still far away, but they appear to be moving. In our direction? Jake felt his heart sink. If there were more human ships coming, this had just become much more complicated. His patrol ship carried enough weapons to handle smugglers and pirates, but if the stories about human military technology were true, he might as well be flying. A cargo container. How many ships, Velinara? At least 3, sir. Maybe more. They are still too far away to get a clear reading. Jake turned back to the communication screen. Lieutenant Rodriguez? Are those your ships approaching our position? Yes, Commander. Standard escort protocol for damaged vessels in foreign space. Nothing to be concerned about. Foreign space. The human was treating Galactic Council territory like it belonged to someone else. Jake was beginning to understand that this was not just a random encounter with a damaged ship. This was something much bigger. He had 2 choices. He could report this to his superiors and let them decide what to do, or he could try to handle it himself and hope he did not start another war by accident. Jake looked at the calm, professional interface on his screen and made his decision. Jake decided to keep talking to the human while he tried to figure out what to do next. He needed more information before he could make any decisions that might affect the entire galaxy. Lieutenant Rodriguez, I need to verify some information. With my superiors, can you wait here while I contact Galactic Council headquarters? Of course, Commander. We are in no hurry. Our technical issues are minor, and we can wait as long as needed. Jake muted the communication channel and turned to his crew. The alien on the bridge was looking at him with wide eyes. He had never seen his people look so scared before. Zethka, I want you to search our military database for everything we have on Earth control and human military capabilities. Go back as far as our records allow. Yes, sir. The green alien's forehands moved quickly over his controls. Sir, should I send an emergency message to headquarters? Jake thought about it. If he sent an emergency signal, the entire Galactic Council fleet might come rushing to this location. And that could be very bad if the humans thought it was an attack. Not. Yet, first, I want to know what we are dealing with. Velinara, can you tell me more about those other ships you detected? The purple-skinned communications officer worked at her station. They are definitely getting closer, Commander. Count at least 4 ships now, maybe 5. They are still several hours away at current speed. What size are they? That is the strange part, sir. The readings keep changing. Sometimes they look like small ships, sometimes much larger. It is like they are using some kind of technology to hide their true size. He felt a chill run down his spine. Stealth technology was something the humans had been famous for during the old wars. His grandfather had told him stories about human ships that could appear and disappear like ghosts. Zethka, what have you found? The tactical officer's skin had turned a darker shade of green, which meant he was very worried. Commander, the database has a lot of information about the humans. Most of it is not good news for us. Tell me. 300 years ago, Earth Control was the military organization that controlled all human space forces. They had technology that was at least 50 years ahead of anything the other species had. Their ships were faster, their weapons were more powerful, and their tactics were unlike anything anyone had seen before. Jake nodded. He knew some of this from the stories his grandfather had told him. What else? The humans did not fight like other species, sir. When most species go to war, they try to capture territory or resources. Humans seem to fight just to prove they could win. They would attack multiple enemies at the same time, and somehow manage to defeat all of them. Elenara looked up. From her station, my grandmother fought in those wars too. She said the humans were not cruel, but they were completely without fear. They would do things that no sane being would try, and somehow it would work. Jake walked over to look at Zethka's screen, showed old battle reports and tactical analyses from the war period. The numbers were frightening. Human ships with crews of 20 defeating alien fleets with crews of thousands. Human ground forces winning battles while being outnumbered 10-1. What happened to them after the Great Purge? That is where the records get strange, sir. The Great Purge was supposed to be the final battle where all 7 alien empires worked together to destroy the human homeworlds. But the reports from that time do not make sense. What do you mean, sir? The official reports say that Earth and all the human colonies were destroyed. But some of the older files suggest that most of the human planets were already empty when the fleets arrived. It was like the humans knew what was coming and left before the attack happened. Jake stared at the screen. They evacuated their entire civilization. It looks that way, sir. Attacks destroyed cities and military bases, but there were not as many casualties as there should have been. Most estimates say that maybe 10% of the human population actually died in the Great Purge. Where did the other 90% go? Nobody knows, sir. They just vanished. Some reports say human ships were seen heading toward the outer rim of the galaxy, but no one followed them that far. Jake felt his hands start to shake again. If 90% of the human population had survived and fled to unknown space, what had they been doing for 300 years? He turned back to the communication channel and opened it again. Lieutenant Rodriguez appeared on the screen, looking just as calm as before. Lieutenant, can you tell me how many human colonies exist in the current era? That information is classified, Commander, but I can tell you that Earth's control maintains a significant presence in several sectors beyond the current borders of Galactic Council space. Several sectors. Jake tried to do the math in his head. A single sector could contain dozens of star systems. Several sectors could mean hundreds of colonies. Lieutenant, why has Earth control remained hidden for so long? Amy Rodriguez smiled, and Jake noticed that it did not reach her eyes. We were not hiding, Commander. We were growing. After the political difficulties 300 years ago, Earth control leadership decided it would be better to develop our capabilities away from the more crowded regions of the galaxy. Growing, developing capabilities. Jake was beginning to understand that the humans had spent 3 centuries becoming something much more powerful than they had been during the old wars. Velenara, how close are those other ships now? About 2 hours away, sir. And Commander, I am detecting something else. It looks like there might be a much larger ship behind them. The readings are very faint, but if I am right, it could be enormous. Jake closed the communication channel again and gathered his crew around him. I need honest opinions from all of you. What do you think we should do? Zethka spoke first. Sir, if these really are humans with 300 years of technological advancement, we cannot fight them. Our ship would be destroyed in seconds. Velenara nodded. My grandmother always said that the humans were not evil, just very good at war. Maybe we can talk to them. But what about the Galactic Council? Asked another crew member. Should we not warn them that the humans are back? Jake thought about this carefully. If we send a warning message, what do you think the Council will do? They will probably send a fleet to investigate, Zethka said. And if the humans see a fleet coming toward them, what will they think? The bridge went quiet as everyone realized the problem. The humans might think the alien fleet was coming to attack them. After what happened 300 years ago, they might decide to shoot first and ask questions later. Commander Velinara said quietly, I think we might be the first aliens to meet humans in 300 years. That makes this very important. Jake opened the communication channel again. Lieutenant Rodriguez was still there, waiting patiently. Lieutenant, I would like to speak with your commanding officer if possible. One moment, Commander. The screen changed, and Jake found himself looking at a human male in a military uniform. The man appeared to be middle-aged, with short brown hair and serious eyes. His uniform had symbols and markings that Jake did not recognize, but they looked very official. Commander Martinez, I am Captain Steve Thompson of the Earth Survey Vessel Liberty. Lieutenant Rodriguez tells me you have some questions about our presence in this sector. Jake tried to keep his voice steady. Captain Thompson, I am required to report all contact with unknown vessels to my superiors. However, given the historical significance of this encounter, I wanted to speak with you. First, Captain Thompson nodded slowly. I appreciate your caution, Commander. What would you like to know? Jake looked at Captain Thompson on the screen and tried to think of the right questions to ask. This conversation could change the future of the entire galaxy. Captain, my records showed that Earth control disappeared after the Great Purge 300 years ago. Can you explain how you are still operating? Captain Thompson's expression did not change. Commander, Earth control never disappeared. We simply moved our base of operations to regions that offered better opportunities for growth and development. What kind of opportunities? The Outer Rim sectors contain many uninhabited star systems with rich resources and strategic value. After the political conflicts with the inter-galaxy species, Earth control leadership decided these regions would better serve our long-term goals. Jake noticed that the human never called it a war. He always said political conflicts or difficulties, like it had been a simple disagreement instead of a galaxy-wide battle that killed billions. Captain, how many star systems does Earth control currently occupy? That information is classified for security reasons. What I can tell you is that we have established a stable and growing civilization that spans multiple sectors. Zethka caught Jake's attention and pointed at his screen. He had been monitoring the human ship's data transmissions. Commander, they are sending us a large data package. Should I accept it? Jake looked at Captain Thompson. What are you transmitting to us? Standard diplomatic identification and clearance. Codes, along with updated star charts showing current territorial boundaries. This should help clarify any confusion about jurisdictional authority in this region. Jake nodded to Zethka, who began downloading the data. Almost immediately, the tactical officer's eyes went wide, and his skin turned an even darker shade of green. Commander, you need to see this. Jake walked over to look at Zethka's screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. The star chart showed dozens of star systems marked with Earth control symbols. Systems that the Galactic Council believed were empty wilderness were shown as inhabited human colonies. This cannot be right, Jake whispered. Sir, the data is authentic. Our computers confirm that these codes and charts carry valid Earth control authentication signatures, but look at the dates. Jake looked closer. The territorial claims were dated within the last 50 years. Some were as recent as 10 years ago. They have been expanding this entire time, Jake said quietly. Not just expanding, sir. Look at this. Zethka pointed to another section of the chart. These systems show industrial ratings and population estimates. If these numbers are correct, some of these colonies are larger than most Galactic Council member worlds. Jake felt dizzy. The humans had not just survived the Great Purge, they had used the last 3 centuries to build an empire that might be larger than the entire Galactic Council combined. He turned back to Captain Thompson. Captain, these star charts show extensive human colonization in sectors we believed were uninhabited. How long has this expansion been taking place? Earth control has been steadily developing new territories since our relocation program began approximately 290 years ago. We have found the Outer Rim regions to be very suitable for our needs. Why has no one detected your presence before now? Captain Thompson smiled slightly. Commander, Earth Control has always preferred to operate with discretion. We have had no reason to advertise our activities to species that showed hostile intent toward us in the past. Jake realized that the humans had been watching everything. For 300 years, they had been building and growing while keeping themselves hidden from the rest of the galaxy. Captain, are you saying that Earth Control has been monitoring Galactic Council activities? We maintain awareness of political and military developments throughout the galaxy. Yes, it would be irresponsible not to keep track of potential threats to our colonies and trade routes. Lenara looked up from her station with a worried expression. Commander, those ships are getting much closer. And I was right about the larger vessel. It is massive. It's how massive? At least 10 times the size of our ship, sir. It's maybe larger. It is still hard to get accurate readings because of some kind of interference. Jake turned back to Captain Thompson. Captain, my officer tells me there is a large ship approaching our position. Can you explain? What? That would be the ESV Sovereignty, Commander. Admiral Kate Sullivan is coming to oversee our diplomatic contact with your vessel, Admiral.
Yes.
Commander, when Earth Control detected your patrol ship, we followed standard protocol for first contact situations with potentially hostile forces. Jake felt another chill. The humans considered his small patrol ship potentially hostile. What did that say about their military capabilities? Captain Thompson, I want to be very clear about something. My ship is not hostile. We're a routine patrol vessel, checking for smugglers and illegal activity. I understand that, Commander. However, given the historical relationship between Earth Control and the current galactic government, we prefer to take appropriate precautions. The screen flickered, and suddenly Jake was looking at a different human. This one was a woman with short blonde hair and the bearing of someone used to command. Her uniform had even more impressive markings than Captain Thompson's. Commander Martinez, I am Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Control Defense Network. Captain Thompson has briefed me on your situation. Jake tried to stay calm. Admiral Sullivan, I am honored to meet you. I hope we can resolve any misunderstandings peacefully. That is certainly our goal, Commander. I understand you have questions about Earth Control's current status and activities. Yes, Admiral. The government believed that Earth Control no longer existed. Your presence here is quite surprising. Admiral Sullivan nodded. I can understand the confusion. Earth Control has maintained operational security for obvious reasons. However, recent developments have led us to conclude that it may be time to re-establish formal diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. What kind of recent developments? We have been monitoring increasing instability in several border regions. Pirate activity has increased significantly. There have been reports of slave trading and other criminal activities that threaten civilian populations. Jake was confused. Admiral, those regions are outside Galactic Council jurisdiction. We do not patrol that far from our core systems. Exactly, Commander. Earth Control has decided that someone needs to take responsibility for maintaining order in those areas. The implications of this statement hit Jake like a physical blow. The humans were talking about policing regions that the Galactic Council could not or would not patrol. They were positioning themselves as the galaxy's peacekeepers. Admiral, are you saying that Earth Control intends to expand its operations into areas currently experiencing lawlessness? We prefer to think of it as fulfilling our responsibility to protect innocent civilians, regardless of their species or political affiliation. Sethka whispered urgently to Jake. Sir, I am detecting more ships on the sensors. Much more. Looks like an entire fleet. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. This was rapidly becoming much bigger than a simple first contact situation. Admiral Sullivan, how many ships do you have in this region? Enough to ensure the safety of our diplomatic mission, Commander? Earth Control always travels with adequate protection. Jake looked around his bridge at his frightened crew. It stumbled into something that was going to change everything. The humans were not just back. They were back with 3 centuries of technological advancement and apparently an entire hidden civilization. Admiral, I need to report this contact to my superiors. They will want to know that Earth Control is active again. Of course, Commander. In fact, we would prefer that you do so. It is time for the Galactic Council to understand that Earth Control never left. We simply chose to grow stronger in privacy. What happens next, Admiral? It depends entirely. On how the Galactic Council chooses to respond to our return, Commander Martinez. We hope for peaceful cooperation. But Earth Control has learned to be prepared for all possibilities. Jake realized that his routine patrol had just become the most important moment in galactic history since the Great Purge. Everything that happened next would depend on the choices made by beings much more important than a simple patrol commander. But for now, he was the only link between two civilizations that had not spoken for 300 years. Jake stared at Admiral Sullivan on the screen and tried to process everything he had learned. His small patrol ship was now surrounded by human vessels that could probably destroy his entire home fleet without breaking a sweat. But the humans. We're talking about peace and cooperation, not conquest. Admiral Sullivan, before I contact my superiors, I need to understand something. What does Earth Control want from the Galactic Council? The Admiral leaned back in her chair. Behind her, Jake could see other humans working at stations that looked far more advanced than anything on his ship. Commander, Earth Control does not want anything from the Galactic Council. We are simply informing you that we exist and that we have certain interests in maintaining galactic stability. What kind of interests? Trade routes, for one thing. Colonies need to exchange goods and resources. Some of our trade ships have been attacked by pirates operating in neutral space. We would prefer to resolve these problems through cooperation, rather than unilateral action. Jake felt a chill when she said unilateral action. That sounded like a polite way of saying the humans would handle the pirate problem themselves if necessary. Admiral, are you saying that Earth Control has the capability to deal with pirate fleets? Admiral Sullivan smiled, and it was not entirely friendly. Commander, Earth Control has had 300 years to develop our defensive capabilities. I think you can assume we are adequately prepared to protect our interests. Zethka caught Jake's attention and showed him his sensor readings. The human fleet was now clearly visible on their screens. Jake counted at least 20 ships ranging from small escorts to massive vessels that dwarfed anything in the Galactic Council Navy. Admiral, your fleet is quite impressive. May I ask how many ships Earth Control operates? That information is classified, Commander. But I can tell you that we maintain sufficient forces to patrol our territories and protect our colonies. Jake was beginning to understand that every answer the humans gave him raised 10 new questions. They were being polite and professional, but they were not telling him anything that might compromise their security. A new voice came through the communication system. It was a woman with a slight accent that Jake did not recognize. Admiral Sullivan, this is Dr. Lisa Parker. I am ready to begin the diplomatic briefing if the commander is interested. Admiral Sullivan nodded. Commander Martinez, Dr. Parker is our diplomatic specialist. She can explain our position in more detail. The screen split and Jake found himself looking at both. Admiral Sullivan and Dr. Parker. The diplomat was a middle-aged woman with brown hair and intelligent eyes. She wore a different uniform that had symbols Jake assumed represented civilian authority. Commander Martinez, it is a pleasure to meet you. Understand this contact has been somewhat surprising for you. That is an understatement, Dr. Parker. Can't imagine. Let me try to clarify Earth Control's current position. We have spent the last 3 centuries building a stable civilization in the Outer Rim territories. We now have colonies, trade networks, industrial facilities, and defensive forces that allow us to maintain our independence. How many people are we talking about, Dr. Parker? Current Earth Control population is classified information. I can tell you that we represent a significant demographic presence in the galaxy. Jake was getting frustrated with all the classified information, but he understood why the humans were being careful. Dr. Parker, what does Earth Control want to happen as a result of this contact? We would like to re-establish diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. We believe it is time to end the period of isolation that began after the unfortunate conflicts 300 years ago. What would these diplomatic relations look like? Dr. Parker paused for a moment as if choosing her words carefully. Earth Control would be willing to participate in certain galactic institutions, particularly those related to trade regulation and conflict resolution. We are not interested in joining the Galactic Council as a member state, but we would like to establish formal treaties and agreements. Why not join the Council as a member? Earth control has developed its own governmental and economic systems over the past 3 centuries. We prefer to maintain our independence while cooperating on matters of mutual interest. Jake realized that the humans were essentially offering to become an independent power that would work with the Galactic Council when it suited their interests. They were not asking for permission or approval. They were announcing their return as equals. Dr. Parker, what happens if the Galactic Council is not interested in establishing these relations? The diplomat's expression became more serious. Commander, Earth Control hopes that will not be the case. We believe cooperation is better than isolation. However, we are prepared to continue operating independently if necessary. And what does operating independently mean? It means we will continue to protect our territories, maintain our trade routes, and ensure the safety of our colonies. We will also continue to intervene in situations where innocent civilians are threatened by criminal activity, regardless of the political jurisdiction involved. Jake understood the message. The humans were going to act like a galactic power, whether the council recognized them or not. They had the ships and the technology to back up their words. Velinara looked up from her station with a worried expression. Commander, I am receiving a priority message from Galactic Council headquarters. They are asking for an immediate status report. Jake looked at the humans on his screen. Admiral Sullivan, Dr. Parker, my superiors are requesting a report. What should I tell them? Admiral Sullivan and Dr. Parker exchanged a look. Then the Admiral spoke. Tell them the truth, Commander. Earth Control has returned to Galactic Affairs and wishes to establish formal diplomatic contact. We are prepared to send a delegation to meet with Council leadership at their convenience. What if they refuse to meet with you? And we will continue our current operations and hope that future Council leadership will be more interested in cooperation, Dr. Parker said. Jake realized that the humans had put him in an impossible position. If he reported this contact, the Council might panic and send a military fleet to investigate. But if he did not report it, he would be failing in his duty as a patrol commander. Admiral Dr. Parker, I need to ask you a direct question. Galactic Council sends a fleet to this location. Will Earth Control consider it an act of aggression? Admiral Sullivan's expression became very serious. Commander, that would depend entirely on the size and intention of the fleet. A small diplomatic escort would be welcome. A large military force might be interpreted differently. How would you respond to a large military force? Earth Control would take appropriate defensive measures to protect our ships and personnel. Jake felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool air on his bridge. The humans were being polite, but they were also making it clear that they would fight if they felt threatened. Admiral, what would you consider an appropriate size for a diplomatic escort? No more than 5 ships, Commander? Anything larger would suggest hostile intent. Jake did some quick calculations. The standard Galactic Council responds to an unknown. Contact was to send at least 10 ships to investigate. If the humans saw 10 Council ships approaching, they might start shooting. Dr. Parker, is there any way to arrange this first diplomatic contact that would not risk a misunderstanding? The diplomat thought for a moment. Commander, what if you were to escort one of our diplomatic vessels to a neutral location for a formal meeting? That way, both sides would know that the contact is peaceful. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting to see what he would decide. He had never been trained for anything like this. Let me contact my superiors and explain the situation. Can you give me some time to arrange a proper response? Of course, Commander, Admiral Sullivan said. We will wait here for your decision. But please understand that Earth Control cannot wait indefinitely. We have other responsibilities to attend to. Wait. Jake nodded and closed the communication channel. He turned to face his crew, knowing that the next few hours would determine whether the galaxy moved toward peace or war. Jake stood in the center of his bridge and looked at each member of his crew. The next decision he made could change the course of galactic history. He could feel the weight of that responsibility pressing down on him. Velinara, I need you to establish a secure communication link with Galactic Council headquarters. Priority 1, encryption. Yes, sir. The purple-skinned communications officer worked quickly at her station. Link established, Commander. You are connected to Admiral Chen at fleet operations. Jake had met Admiral Chen several times before. She was a tough but fair commander who had served in the Council fleet for over 40 years. If anyone would listen to reason, it would be her. Admiral Chen, this is Commander Martinez on Patrol Ship 792. I need to report a first contact situation of extreme importance. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen. She was an older member of the Zenthari species, with the silver-scaled skin and large eyes typical of her people. Her expression was, "Serious, Commander Martinez, please proceed with your report." Jake took a deep breath. "Admiral, I have made contact with representatives of Earth's control. They claim to be operating under the authority of the human government that existed prior to the Great Purge." Admiral Chen's large eyes went even wider. "Commander, are you certain of this identification?" "Yes, Admiral. They have provided authentication codes and diplomatic clearances that our computers confirm as genuine. They also possess technology that appears to be significantly advanced beyond our current capabilities. How many ships are we talking about, Commander?" Jake looked at Zethka, who held up 2 hands showing 10 fingers twice. "At least 20 ships, Admiral. Possibly more. They have a large flagship that appears to be several times the size of our heaviest cruisers." Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Jake could almost see her mind working through the implications. "Commander, what is the disposition of these human forces? Are they hostile?" "No, Admiral. They have been completely professional and have expressed interest in re-establishing diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. However, they have also made it clear that they consider themselves to be an independent power." "What do they want?" "They want to arrange a formal diplomatic meeting with Council leadership, or offering to participate in galactic trade and security arrangements, but they do not wish to join the Council as a member state." Admiral Chen rubbed her scaled forehead with one hand. "Commander, this is far beyond my authority to handle. I need to contact the full Council leadership immediately." "Admiral, there is something else you need to know. The humans have indicated that they will interpret a large military response as a hostile act. They specifically mentioned that more than 5 ships would be considered a threat." "Are they threatening us, Commander?" "Not exactly, Admiral. Seem to prefer peaceful cooperation. But they have made it clear that they are prepared to defend themselves if they feel threatened." Admiral Chen looked off-screen for a moment, probably talking to her staff. When she looked back at Jake, her expression was very serious. "Commander, I am going to patch you through to an emergency session of the full Galactic Council. We will need to repeat your report to the entire leadership." Jake felt his stomach drop. Speaking to the full council was something that only the highest-ranking officers ever did. He was just a patrol commander. "Admiral, are you sure that is appropriate?" "I am not qualified to brief the council leadership. Commander, you are the only person who has spoken to these humans. Right now, you are the most qualified person in the galaxy for this briefing." The screen flickered, and suddenly Jake found himself looking at a large conference room filled with representatives from dozens of different species. These were the leaders of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, and they were all looking at him. A tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms stepped forward. Jake recognized him as Council Chairman Victor. "Commander Martinez, please provide a complete briefing on your contact with the human forces." Jake spent the next 20 minutes explaining everything that had happened. He described the human ships, their technology, their claims about territorial expansion, and their offer of diplomatic cooperation. The council members listened in complete silence. When Jake finished his report, the room erupted in discussion. Different species began arguing about what this meant for galactic security. Some wanted to send a military fleet immediately. Others suggested trying to negotiate. Chairman Victor raised his hands for silence. "Commander Martinez, in your opinion, what is the most appropriate response to this situation?" Jake had hoped they would not ask him that question, but he had been thinking about it during his entire report. "Chairman, I believe the humans are genuinely interested in peaceful cooperation. However, they have also made it clear that they are not the same species that existed 300 years ago. They appear to have grown much stronger and more capable during their time in isolation. Do you believe they pose a threat to council member worlds?
Sir.
I believe they pose a threat to anyone who threatens them. But they have shown no interest in conquest or aggression. They seem more interested in trade and security cooperation. Council member, a insect-like being with multiple eyes, spoke up. Commander, what do you recommend we do? Jake looked around the room at all the powerful beings watching him. He thought about his crew, about the human ships waiting for his answer, and about the billions of people throughout the galaxy who would be affected by what happened next. I recommend that we accept their offer of diplomatic contact. Send a small delegation of no more than 5 ships to meet with their representatives at a neutral location. Try to establish formal relations before deciding on any other course of action. Chairman Victor nodded slowly. Commander, would you be willing to serve as our liaison for this diplomatic contact? You have already established communication with the human forces. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. Yes, sir. I would be honored to serve in that capacity. Very well, Commander Martinez. You are hereby promoted to the rank of Special Diplomatic Envoy with full authority to negotiate preliminary agreements with the human delegation. Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. A few hours ago, he had been a simple patrol commander. Now he was being asked to negotiate with a species that had not spoken to the galaxy for 300 years. Thank you, Chairman.
What are
my instructions? Arrange a meeting with the human leadership at a location both sides consider safe. Establish the basic framework for diplomatic relations. And Commander, try to avoid starting another war. Jake nodded, and the connection to the council chambers ended. He was back on his own bridge, looking at his crew who had heard everything through the open communication channel. Well, Velinara said quietly, that was not how I expected this patrol to end. Jake opened the communication channel to the human ships. Admiral Sullivan and Dr. Parker appeared on the screen.
Admiral?
Dr. Parker, I have spoken with the Galactic Council leadership. They have agreed to send a diplomatic delegation to meet with your representatives. Admiral Sullivan smiled, and this time it seemed genuine. That is excellent news, Commander. We are pleased that the Council has chosen the path of cooperation. I have been appointed as the Council's liaison for these negotiations. Can we arrange a meeting location that both sides will consider acceptable? Dr. Parker nodded. We suggest the neutral space station at Kepler 442. It is halfway between our current territories and Council space. The station is independently operated and has facilities suitable for diplomatic meetings. That sounds acceptable. How many ships will Earth Control bring to this meeting? 3 ships, Admiral Sullivan said. 1 diplomatic vessel and 2 escorts. We assume the Council will bring a similar number. Jake felt relieved. 3 ships would not trigger the Council's paranoia about military threats. Admiral Dr. Parker, I want to thank you for your patience during this process. I hope this will be the beginning of a new era of cooperation between our peoples. Commander Dr. Parker said, you have handled the situation with great wisdom and courage. Earth Control looks forward to working with you in the future. As the communication ended, Jake realized that his routine patrol had become the first step toward ending 3 centuries of separation between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Whether that would lead to peace or conflict remained to be seen. But at least they were talking instead of shooting. And sometimes, Jake thought, talking was the most important victory of all.